The exploration ship New Dawn drifted through empty space, its hull reflecting the cold light of distant stars. Inside the bridge, Dr. Minji Park pressed her face against the observation window, staring at something that should not exist. Below them stretched a city unlike anything humans had ever built. Tall crystal towers reached toward the sky like frozen lightning, their surfaces smooth and perfect. Bridges made of light connected floating platforms that hung in the air without any visible support. Gardens of silver trees lined pathways that curved through impossible angles, defying the laws of physics humans knew. It was beautiful. It was advanced far beyond human technology. And it was completely empty. "Same readings as the last system," said Lieutenant Do-Yun Kim from his control station. His voice was tired. They had been traveling for 6 months, jumping from star to star, and every world told the same story. No life signs, no power sources active, no radio signals. Nothing. Captain Jaewon Lee walked over to join Minji at the window. His face looked older than his 40 years, worn down by the weight of discovery after disappointing discovery. "How many does this make?" 15, Minji replied quietly. 15 different star systems, 15 different alien civilizations, all dead, all abandoned at exactly the same time. She pulled up her tablet and showed him the data they had collected. Each world they visited had been home to a different species. Some had built cities underwater. Others had carved homes into asteroid belts. A few had even learned to live in the empty space between planets. But all of them had one thing in common. They had all disappeared 50,000 years ago, down to the exact same decade. "Captain," called Communications Officer Hana Cho from across the bridge. "I'm picking up a signal from the planet's surface. It's weak, but it's definitely artificial. Something down there is still trying to talk." Jaewon looked at Minji, then back at the crystal city below. "Could be a trap." "Could be answers," Minji said. "We've come this far." An hour later, they stood in the main plaza of the alien city. Their boots echoed strangely on the crystal ground, creating sounds that seemed to bounce in directions that didn't exist. The buildings around them were even more impressive up close. They seemed to grow from the ground like plants, but they were clearly made by intelligent hands. Do-Hyun carried a scanner that beeped constantly as it detected technologies his device couldn't understand. "The energy readings are off the charts, but I can't figure out where the power is coming from. It's like the whole city is one big machine." The signal led them to a building in the center of the plaza. Unlike the others, this one was dark inside. But as soon as they stepped through the entrance, lights began to glow in the walls. Not electric lights, something that seemed to come from the crystal itself. In the middle of the room stood a platform with what looked like a control panel, but instead of buttons or switches, it had smooth surfaces that pulsed with gentle colors. Minji approached carefully and placed her hand on one of the glowing areas. The room exploded with light and sound. Holographic images filled the air around them, moving pictures that showed the city as it once was, full of tall, graceful beings, with skin like polished stone and large, intelligent eyes. The aliens moved through their city with purpose, working on projects the humans couldn't understand, building machines that bent reality itself. Then one of the images spoke, and somehow they could understand its words as if it were speaking perfect Korean. "If you are hearing this message," the alien said, "then you have found our tomb. We are the Keepers, the last civilization to stand against what we cannot name. We record this warning for whoever comes after us, though we fear there may be no one left to hear it." The hologram showed images that made the humans' blood run cold. Space itself seemed to fold and twist. Stars dimmed and went out. Entire solar systems disappeared from the galaxy as if they had never existed. "We called it the silence," the Keeper continued. "It comes not with weapons or armies, but with emptiness itself. When the silence touches a world, thought stops. Consciousness ends. Civilizations do not die. They simply cease to have ever been." More images flashed around them. Desperate scenes of the Keepers trying to fight something they couldn't see or touch. Ships fleeing to other galaxies. Scientists working frantically on devices that might protect them, all ending the same way, with empty cities and silent worlds. "We tried everything. We hid in other dimensions. We scattered our people across 1,000,000 worlds. We built shields that could stop entire suns. Nothing worked. The silence found us all. It always finds everyone. The recording began to flicker and fade, but the Keeper's final words came through clearly. We calculate that it will return to this part of the galaxy when the next thinking species reaches the stars. If you are advanced enough to find this message, it is already too late. The silence has awakened. It comes for you now. The hologram vanished, leaving the 4 humans standing in sudden darkness. Outside, the empty city stretched away in all directions, a monument to failure and a warning they might not have time to heed. "Captain," Hana's voice came through their radio, tight with fear. "Long-range sensors are detecting something moving in the outer systems. Space itself is going dark." 3 months had passed since the discovery on the Keeper world, and the human exploration fleet had grown from 1 ship to 12. Every vessel carried scientists, soldiers, and equipment designed to unlock the secrets of the dead galaxy. But, with each new world they visited, the mystery only deepened. Dr. Sun Wuhan stepped out of the shuttle onto a platform that shouldn't exist. Around him, massive metal rings floated in the vacuum of space without any support, each one large enough for a battleship to fly through. The rings were covered in symbols that seemed to move when he wasn't looking directly at them, shifting and changing like living things. "The translation computer is having problems with these markings," said Dr. Borayun, holding a scanner up to the nearest ring. "It's not just language. The symbols carry some kind of emotional weight. They make me feel afraid." Captain Minho Choi, younger brother of the famous Captain Jaewon Lee, watched from the shuttle as his team explored the ring structure. These things could move entire fleets across the galaxy in seconds. Whatever built them had technology we can't even dream of. So why did they just abandon it all? The rings belonged to a species the humans had started calling the Void Swimmers. Unlike other dead civilizations, the Void Swimmers had left more than empty cities. They had left warnings. Everywhere the humans looked, they found messages carved into metal, burned into crystal, even written in the arrangement of the floating rings themselves, all saying the same thing. The silence comes, hide, run. Nothing works. It took them 6 hours to find the main control center, hidden inside the largest ring. The room was spherical, with no clear floor or ceiling, designed for beings that could fly through space as easily as humans walked on land. In the center floated a crystalline device that pulsed with dying light. When Sun Wu touched the crystal, the room filled with images of terror. The Void Swimmer who appeared in the hologram was clearly dying. Its normally graceful form flickered, like a broken television, fading in and out of existence. When it spoke, its voice carried pure fear. Day 73 since first contact with the silence. "We understand now why the other civilizations fell so quickly. It doesn't kill you. It erases you. Not just your body, not just your life, but the very idea that you ever existed." The hologram showed scenes that made the humans sick to watch. Entire populations of Void Swimmers simply stopping mid-flight, their bodies hanging motionless in space. When other swimmers tried to help them, they found empty shells, bodies that breathed and had heartbeats, but contained no thoughts at all. "We tried to fight it with our greatest weapons," the dying swimmer continued. "Our reality-bending cannons passed right through it. We tried to hide in other dimensions, but it followed us there too. We sent our children to the far edges of your time itself, but the silence found them even there." Engineer Kyungmin Lee, monitoring the human ships from the control room, noticed something wrong with their equipment. "Captain, our communication systems are showing interference. The same frequency patterns we're seeing in these recordings." The warning made everyone's blood run cold. If their technology was being affected, that meant, "It knows we're here," Minho whispered. The Void Swimmer's message continued, showing desperate calculations and star charts marked with expanding zones of nothingness. "We have learned terrible things about our enemy. The silence feeds on unified thought. It grows stronger when civilizations think as one. Every species that reached the stars did so by learning to work together, to share minds and purposes. That unity made us powerful. It also made us perfect food. More images flashed through the hologram. The humans saw other alien species they hadn't discovered yet. Beings made of living metal, creatures that existed as pure energy, races that had transcended physical form entirely. All had achieved incredible unity of purpose. All had fallen to the silence in exactly the same way. We calculate it will return when the next spacefaring species reaches sufficient mental complexity. The swimmer's final message played. It sleeps between feedings, waiting in the spaces between thoughts. But when it senses unity, cooperation, shared consciousness, it awakens. It hungers. It comes. Emergency alarms began blaring throughout the human fleet. Communications officer. Unipark's voice crackled over every ship's radio. All vessels, we have a problem. Long-range sensors are detecting massive distortions in the Rigel sector. 3 monitoring stations have gone silent in the past hour. Captain Minho gripped his command chair as reports flooded in. System after system was going dark along the galaxy's outer rim. Not destroyed, just empty, as if everything in them had simply forgotten how to exist. Sun Wu ran quick calculations on his portable computer, his hands shaking as he worked. Based on the expansion pattern from the old records and what we're seeing now, 18 months, maybe less before it reaches human space. How is that possible? Bora asked. We've only been in space for a few decades. We're nowhere near as advanced as these other species were. The answer came from the Void Swimmer's final flickering message. Beware the connected mind. Beware shared purpose. The more you work as one, the easier you become to find. The silence is patient. It has waited 50,000 years, but now it stirs. Now it wakes, and it is already searching for the next civilization to feed upon. The hologram died, leaving the humans alone with the terrible knowledge that somewhere in the darkness between stars, something ancient and hungry was turning its attention toward Earth. Admiral Hyejin Nam stood in the war room deep beneath Seoul, watching red dots spread across the galaxy map like drops of blood in water. Each red dot marked a place where human colonies, research stations, or patrol ships had simply stopped responding. In the past month alone, 12 entire star systems had gone silent. Status report, she commanded as Commander Taehyun Ko entered the room carrying a tablet full of bad news. It's getting faster, Admiral, Taehyun said, his voice tight with worry. What used to take weeks now happens in days. The mining colony at Wolf 359 went quiet yesterday at 2 in the afternoon. We sent a robot probe to check on them. He paused, struggling to find the right words. The probe's computer stopped working the moment it entered the system. Not broken or damaged. It just stopped thinking. Dr. Jihoon Park looked up from his research station, where he had been studying the alien records for months without sleep. His eyes were red and his hands shook from too much coffee. I think I finally understand what we're fighting. The silence isn't a weapon or a creature. It's more like a black hole, but instead of pulling in matter, it pulls in thoughts. It exists in the empty spaces between our minds, and it gets stronger by eating the mental energy of entire civilizations. How do you fight something like that? Asked Captain Soo-Young Yu, commander of Earth's defense fleet. She had been preparing for war against alien invaders, not something that couldn't be shot or bombed. That's the problem, Jihoon continued. Every species that tried to fight it failed because they treated it like a normal enemy. The crystalline builders made huge mental shields to protect their thoughts. The mind weavers tried to outthink it with their super smart computers. The void swimmers tried to hide in different dimensions, but they all had one thing in common that made them easy targets. What was that? Hyejin asked, though she already feared the answer. They were united. Each civilization had learned to think together, to work as one mind. They had shared consciousness, perfect teamwork, unified goals. To the silence, they looked like single giant brains. Easy to find, easy to consume, easy to digest. Warning lights began flashing throughout the command center. Lieutenant Seojin Lim's voice echoed from the speakers. Admiral, emergency transmission from Kepler Colony. They're reporting that people are stopping, just standing still and staring at nothing. The medical teams can't wake them up. Through the communication system, they could hear chaos from the colony. People shouting orders, emergency sirens wailing, doctors calling for help. Then slowly, the voices grew quieter. One by one, the sounds stopped until only static remained. "How long until it reaches Earth?" Hyejin asked quietly, though she dreaded the answer. Jihoon's calculations appeared on the main screen, showing the silence's expansion pattern across the galaxy. At its current speed, 6 weeks, maybe less. "But Admiral, there's something else we need to discuss." He brought up displays showing Earth's communication networks, military coordination systems, and planetary defense grids. Bright lines connected every human settlement, every ship, every outpost in a web of constant communication. "Look at this. We're more connected now than we've ever been in human history. Our quantum internet links every human colony. Our military works together with perfect coordination. Our cities are managed by AI systems that think faster than any human. We've spent decades learning to work as one species, one civilization, one unified mind." The terrible truth hit everyone in the room. At the same time, humanity had been trying so hard to work together, to coordinate their efforts, to think alike. They had built the exact kind of unified consciousness that attracted the silence. "We've made ourselves the perfect target," Hyejin said, her voice barely above a whisper. As if summoned by her words, more alarms began ringing. Reports flooded in from across human space. The research station at Proxima Centauri had gone silent. The military base at Alpha Centauri wasn't responding. 3 cargo ships traveling between systems had simply vanished from all sensors. Captain Su-Yung studied the tactical display, watching red zones expand toward the solar system. "Our outer colonies are falling in a pattern. It's not random. It's moving directly toward Earth. Like it knows exactly where to find us." "Of course it knows," Jihoon said grimly. "We've been broadcasting our location to the entire galaxy for decades. Radio signals, quantum communications, navigation beacons. We've been sending out a dinner invitation without realizing it." On the main screen, Earth hung in space like a blue marble, surrounded by the lights of orbital stations, moon bases, and asteroid mining facilities. Millions of humans living and working together in perfect harmony, their thoughts connected by technology, their goals unified by cooperation. Admiral Hyejin looked around the room at her officers and scientists, all working together with military precision to solve the crisis. They were doing exactly what humans did best, cooperating, sharing information, thinking as one unified team, and it was exactly what would get them all killed. "How much time do we have?" she asked. Taehyun checked the latest sensor readings from the outer system monitors. "Based on current expansion rate, the silence will reach Mars orbit in 72 hours. Through the war room's windows, they could see Sol's lights twinkling in the darkness. 8 billion humans going about their lives, connected by technology and united in purpose, completely unaware that their greatest strength was about to become their greatest weakness." Dr. Nayeon Shin rushed into the emergency meeting room, her tablet showing readings that made no sense. The government leaders and military commanders looked exhausted after weeks of preparing for humanity's end. But Nayeon's excitement cut through their despair like a knife. "We have a problem and maybe a solution," she announced, breathing hard from running through the corridors. "The Kepler colony didn't fall the way we expected." Admiral Hyejin Nam looked up from the reports she had been reading. Dark circles under her eyes showed she hadn't slept in days. "What do you mean? We lost contact with them 3 days ago." "Yes, but not completely." Nayeon connected her tablet to the room's display screen. "Many colonists did fall into those empty-minded states we've seen elsewhere, but others are still fighting. And here's the impossible part. They're winning." General Min-Suk Yu shook his head. "That can't be right. Every alien civilization was completely destroyed. How could simple human colonists resist something that killed species millions of years ahead of us? Because we're different. Completely, wonderfully different." Nayeon pulled up brain scan images on the screen. "Look at this. When the crystalline builders faced the silence, their minds were linked together in perfect harmony. Their thoughts moved in sync like musicians playing the same song. The silence could tune into that frequency and absorb all their minds at once. She switched to new images showing human brain activity from the surviving Kepler colonists. The patterns looked like chaos, wild spikes and valleys, completely different from person to person. But humans, we're not a symphony. We're like 100 different bands all playing different songs in the same room. Look at these readings from the colonists who are still conscious. The brain scans showed incredible variety. Some people were terrified, others angry. Some tried to solve the problem with logic while others responded with pure emotion. A few were even curious about what was happening to them. Communications Officer Ji-Young Lee spoke up from her monitoring station. I've been listening to transmissions from colonies under attack. The settlements that fall fastest are our most organized ones. Military bases, research stations, places where everyone follows orders and works together perfectly. But the civilian colonies, Director Wu Jinjiang said slowly, especially the ones that argue a lot. Exactly. Nayan's excitement grew. The Mars Farming Collective has been refusing evacuation orders for weeks. Command thought they were just being difficult. But they weren't being difficult. They were being human. She pulled up communication records from Mars. The recording showed farmers arguing about everything, whether to evacuate, where to go, how to pack their equipment, even what to have for dinner. Every conversation was a debate. Every decision required argument. When Farmer Park wants to evacuate, Farmer Kim wants to stay, and Farmer Cho wants to hide in the underground tunnels. Their contradictory thoughts create interference. The silence. Can't get a clear signal from minds that refuse to agree on anything. Admiral Heejin leaned forward in her chair. Are you telling me that our inability to agree is actually protecting us? Not just protecting, it's confusing the silence completely. Every civilization that reached the stars did so by learning to think together, to work as one mind. That unity made them successful, but it also made them vulnerable. Humans are the only species that got to space while still arguing about everything. The room fell silent as everyone processed this information. Humans had always seen their tendency to disagree as a weakness. They argued about politics, religion, the best way to cook food, whether movies were good or bad. Other species would probably look at human society and wonder how they got anything done. Emergency alarms interrupted their thoughts. Colonel Yonghwan Park's voice came through the speakers. Alert Level 1. The silence has entered the solar system. Luna Base has stopped responding. Through the meeting room's windows, they could see Earth below, its cities glowing with millions of lights. But when they looked toward the moon, the usual radio signals and navigation beacons had gone quiet. How long until it reaches Earth? Hyejin asked, though everyone already knew the answer would be terrible. Nayan ran quick calculations on her tablet. Based on how fast it consumed Luna, 12 hours, maybe less. Then we need to start doing what humans do best, Director, Wujin said with a grim smile. We need to disagree with each other as loudly and as chaotically as possible. The plan that formed in the next few minutes was the strangest military strategy in human history. Instead of coordinating their response, they would do the opposite. Every ship captain would follow different tactics. Every ground unit would pursue its own strategy. Every civilian would be encouraged to think their own thoughts, have their own opinions, and argue with their neighbors about everything. It sounds crazy, admitted General Minsuk. Crazy enough that it might work, Hyejin replied. Alert all military units. New orders. Follow no orders. Think for yourselves. Be as human as possible. As alarms continued to sound throughout the command center, the strangest sight in military history began to unfold. Officers started arguing about the best way to implement the new strategy. Soldiers questioned their commanders. Scientists debated the theory behind the plan. And for the first time since the crisis began, Admiral Hyejin Nam smiled. Humanity was finally doing what it did best, being magnificently, stubbornly individual. If they were going to face the end of the world, they would do it in the most human way possible, by refusing to agree on how to do it. Admiral Hyejin Nam watched from Earth's orbital command station, as her carefully trained fleet scattered in all directions like startled fish. Captain Jaehyun Kang was shouting over the radio about attacking the enemy directly, while Commander Seoyeon Kim insisted they should retreat and regroup. Colonel Jin Ho-yu's ground forces had abandoned their formations completely, with each unit doing whatever its leader thought best. To anyone watching, it looked like humanity's defense had collapsed into complete chaos, which was perfect. "Make more noise," Dr. Naeun Shin urged from her monitoring station. Screens around her showed the psychic interference patterns created by human thoughts. "The confusion is working, but we need more disagreement, more arguing, more chaos." Down. On Earth's surface, 8 billion humans were doing what they had always done best, being completely unable to agree on anything. In Seoul, protesters shouted at counter-protesters about the best way to fight the silence. In New York, every citizen seemed to have a different theory about what was happening. In Lagos, street musicians played different songs at the same time, creating a wonderful mess of sound that somehow worked together. "The silence is hesitating," reported Dr. Changmin Yu, watching the entity's approach on his sensors. "It reached the moon in minutes, but now it's taking hours to move closer to Earth. It's like it can't figure out what we are." The darkness at the edge of the solar system pulsed and twisted, reaching toward Earth like a careful predator approaching. Strange prey. Where it had consumed other worlds in seconds, it now moved slowly, confused by what it was sensing. Captain Minji Park, commanding the lead defense ship, opened communications to the entire fleet. "Remember, everyone, don't follow orders. Think your own thoughts. Be as human as you can possibly be." The response was immediate and perfectly human. Every captain began arguing with her suggestion while doing exactly what she said. Some complained that her plan was stupid. Others insisted their own ideas were better. A few started debating whether they should be following orders not to follow orders. As the silence pressed closer to Earth, something amazing happened. The psychic noise created by humanity's refusal to think alike began to create feedback loops. The entity that had fed on the organized thoughts of unified civilizations found itself overwhelmed by the chaotic energy of 8 billion minds that couldn't agree on anything. "It's working," Naeun shouted over the noise of the command center, where everyone was now talking at once, arguing about readings and debating what to do next. "The silence is destabilizing." But the real breakthrough came when engineer Kyungmin Lee, monitoring deep space sensors, noticed something incredible. "Admiral, the dead zones in the outer galaxy, they're clearing up. I'm getting signals from systems that went dark months ago." On the main display, sectors that had been empty for months began flickering back to life. The crystalline builders' cities started glowing again. Void swimmer ring gates began moving, in their ancient patterns. The Mind Weaver's psychic networks lit up across dozens of star systems. The civilizations it absorbed, Dr. Jihoon Park realized, his voice filled with wonder. They weren't destroyed. They were stored somewhere inside the silence. And now that it's breaking apart, the final confrontation came not as a battle, but as a retreat. The silence, unable to process humanity's psychic chaos, began to fragment and dissolve. As it broke apart, 50,000 years of absorbed consciousness burst free, filling the galaxy with the thoughts and dreams of dozens of species that had been trapped in mental prison. The entity that had terrorized the galaxy for eons couldn't handle the simple fact that humans refused to think the same way. Every time it tried to absorb human consciousness, it found contradiction instead of unity, argument instead of agreement, chaos instead of order. The feedback created by this mental static eventually tore the silence apart from the inside. 6 months later, Admiral Hyejin Nam stood on the bridge of the newly built ship Harmony in Discord, watching vessels from 12 different alien species work together to repair damaged systems across the galaxy. In the background, human crew members continued their eternal debates about the proper way to make first contact with alien civilizations. Dr. Minji Park, now serving as Earth's first ambassador to the restored galactic community, approached with a bemused smile. "The crystalline builders want to honor us with a unity ceremony. The Void Swimmers are offering to share their dimension-traveling technology, and the Mind Weavers want to study how we manage to disagree about everything while still working together. What did you tell them? Hyejin asked. That we're still arguing about how to respond to their offers, Minji replied with a laugh. Through the ship's windows, the stars sang with renewed life. Not in perfect harmony, but in the beautiful discord of countless voices. All different, all arguing, all alive. The galaxy had been saved not by unity or superior technology, but by humanity's stubborn refusal to ever think the same way twice. Across the cosmos, species that had been silent for 50,000 years were learning to speak again. And at the center of it all, humans continued to do what they had always done: argue, debate, disagree, and somehow make it work. The universe was noisy again, and it was wonderful.